to Authors on iTours, and today we're going to have a very exciting and informative interview with Joseph Gulesserian, the author of The Practical M.B.A., his first book in this series being Economics. Joseph Gulesserian is an entrepreneur and a published author who wrote Newspaper Boys Always Deliver, a story of pop culture and technology. He has built and brought to market health and beauty brands with global reach that has sent him around much of the world. With his technical training, he has spent time in the factory floor with technologies from machine building to software information systems for competitive advantage. He has an insatiable eclectic curiosity for flirting with the outer perimeters of the human imagination, is a student of history, loves the arts, design, the digital age, math, while believing in the tenets of the marketplace of ideas and personal liberty. After earning his MBA from Edinburgh Business School in the UK, he taught corporate finance, capital markets, statistics, and marketing as an adjunct professor at Toronto colleges. So now, without any further ado, here is Joe to teach us all we need to know about economics in today's culture.
So, Joe, one of your selling points and one of the things that the reviewers really like about the Practical MBA, and the first installment is on economics, is that you do explain it in the way that the average person who hasn't been to business school can understand that and understand the principles of what you're explaining. What inspired you to do this, to write this book for people? For the average person like me?
I'll answer the second part of the question first. Parts of it start out simple. And then once we get past chapter 5 and inflation, unemployment, the pace picks up. And someone reading it would have to be very focused because it gets quite, intellectual. I cut the graphs and all the mathematics I learned in my MBA. So to keep a long story short, once you get into chapter 6, 7, the Great Depression, the history of the Feds, the history of Bretton Woods, that was the economic order created in 1944 in the world. But once you get into that and swaps and derivatives and all these other more complex subjects, it's fast paced. I can almost with confidence tell you most MBAs have probably not even seen 35% or 40% of what I put in the book, right? They just went to school. And that's the first part. Now, going back to the first part of your question, I hope I answered the second part well.
Okay, yeah.
Going back to the first part, Lauren, of your question, what really inspired me is I have curiosity, and I like to. I don't want to say I love writing. I'm just, maybe you can speak better than me at this. I was exhausted, writing. I've written 3 books. I just want to let you know I've written one before that got published, but this one here I've written, and I've got 2 in draft. And so what I wanted to do is kind of, I've read a lot of classical economics books, or I've turned around and I've read books on, phenomenal one by Jim Rickards on the death of money. I've read, all kinds of non-academic, academic, but it's that one subject. One might be just inflation. And I go, look, all about all your pop cultures, all about what George Clooney's going to tell you to do. I'm on Instagram and I have to make sure that, Taylor Swift tells me who to vote for, how to conduct myself, because I don't have any, what I'm getting at. But where can I create a book where someone can read it and go, aha, you know what, I feel more full. You might be a beginner or you might have a very advanced background, like your husband. And they go, well, you know what, I'm really getting a lot out of this. I want it to be a nice little treasure. By the way, just to give it out, the second book that I've written 65% in draft, you don't want to see my books in draft because they're taken away. It's called it's in the Practical MBA series. It's called The Guerrilla Guide for Entrepreneurs. And the third one is what I really, really spent my life at. And that's the Practical MBA for Marketing. So that's written. I wrote another book on financial derivatives and mathematics. I left it alone somewhere. It's just too.
It's just who, you know, who's into fiction and you know, maybe more like the pulp culture. You hear these words used and you kind of just assume or make a general assumption about what they mean. Like one word that I have heard bantered around my house lately is Bitcoin. Yes. And my husband loves Bitcoin. Okay. And so can you explain to me what is Bitcoin?
Okay, and I will.
And why should somebody get excited about it?
Well, Bitcoin it goes into my book, the goldsmiths of the 18th and 17th century in the UK. What they did is you deposited your gold with them and they would give you a certificate. Then I would take that certificate and I could buy things off Lauren, or I can go to Walmart. Like they still had the British pound, but these certificates I could buy, like, you know, in today's money, $100,000 of widgets or bottles of iPhones and all that, because it was guaranteed by the goldsmiths who held your gold. Because running around with gold and paying people at Walmart with gold was a problem. So they had hardback currency. It was private money. First of all, I'm going to give some great recommendations. I mean, I wasn't born with knowing Bitcoin. I worked at it. It wasn't just reading. First of all, it is private money. It is non-confiscatable. It is not a product that you could use for criminal activity, because there's probably 50 to 70 people that verify where the funds are going into. Okay, and it goes to their hands. Check systems. It is got scarcity value. There's about 19.5 million Bitcoins in the world. And by the year 2000.
And my husband said at some point they're going to stop making it. They're saying at some point they'll stop making it.
And I believe that year is 2140. And Bitcoin now is becoming ESG more sustainable, meaning in terms of the environment, because Bitcoin has gone, El Salvador has gone to a Bitcoin standard as well, right? The African country of CAR has gone to a Bitcoin standard. In the idealistic view, when you have hard money, meaning backed by gold, backed by Bitcoin, your government then can only spend within its means, and you're going to promote more peace than war. So Bitcoin is, according to Max Kaiser, the most perfect money ever created. So if your viewers are more interested in Bitcoin, you can make a note here. Watch the Max and Stacy report. It used to be called the Max Kaiser report. I watched maybe 80 episodes on him, right? He's considered the godfather of Bitcoin. And the other one is the British guy, Simon Dixon, right? He wrote the first book that mentioned Bitcoin as well. The other thing about Bitcoin, it's not in a central depository. It's decentralized, okay?
Okay.
Impossible the most supercomputer, impossible to break the codes. So however, if Satoshi created it, and however, maybe it was a group of people that created it, it was a form of, this was how the internet was supposed to be in 1997, till the Silicon Valley took it over, or in the case of China, they've got their internet companies as well. The internet was supposed to be an ultimate expression of democratization and equality of opportunity for all. It didn't work out that way. You know, the censorship, we won't go there.
Yeah.
That's what Bitcoin is. It's and by the way, and I'm going on about this, it's no longer a bunch of kids with pimple cream in their basement, you know, moving coins back and forth, and, you know, their parents don't understand it. BlackRock Capital has Bitcoin on their books.
Yeah.
And they said Goldman Sachs. Paul Tudor Jones, another American billionaire, has it. Michael Saylor of Micro Systems is using Bitcoin instead of cash. Now he's taken a hit, right? Bitcoin came down. So it's not something I trade. I'm not a trader. I buy something and I like to hold it. You can also, am I going too much here? Okay.
No, I have another question about it, is that, because my husband did mention there are other cryptocurrencies, because that's what Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. There are others, but Bitcoin is the real stuff.
That's the real one.
Yeah, it's the real one.
Yeah, I'll give you an okay. No, ask your question because you have it's a good
Well,
one.
that was my question: is what makes Bitcoin different from the other cryptocurrencies?
Ethereum is not really a currency, and a lot of them are nothing more than Ponzi schemes, right? You might as well dress up as Murdoch, the scam artist in America. I think he passed away now, or better still, I'm not going to get into the feds, but right now, the central banks or government spending out of their means. So stick into your subject. First of all, there's a site called Interbrand on the internet, and Interbrand values brands. This is what I did all my life, right? I've done a lot of valuations and stuff. I like a lot of different things. So in answering your question, Ethereum runs on the AWS system from Amazon, which means Amazon's got their huge servers. You mess with them and you mess with the cartel in Silicon Valley, or if someone doesn't like you in government, they can shut you down. Government cannot shut down Bitcoin. And they're not going to, because government's going to go, well, what else am I going to live off? Let me live off something else so I can go squander more money. So they're going to tax it. It's transparent. Those other Bitcoins, I'm not going to take a big run. Look, I'm going to put it to you this way, why I mentioned the brand. If Bitcoin was a brand, you ask me, I don't have the number in front of me. Once upon a time when I was growing up, Tide was the most valued, Coca-Cola is the most valued brand in the world. It's number 5 or 6 now. Would you say if Apple is worth $800 billion as a brand?
Yeah.
Is there anybody left on this planet that doesn't know what Bitcoin is? So, you're basically dealing with, something that's mineable, it's verifiable, it's non-confiscatable. The other coins, I might have brought a coin out at $2 each. Go ahead, buy it, Lauren. You're going to make, and then next thing you know, I've issued 100 million coins. I got another 200 million in my back pocket. And then once the price goes up, I start dumping mine and the thing goes down. Nobody can have a monopoly on Bitcoin unless you systematically bought it, right?
Yes.
You'd have to, Wall Street would have trouble taking hold of it. So it's digital. I'm not saying you should, sell the farm and everything, the house and what have you, and buy all Bitcoin, but I think it has to be an essential part of somebody's portfolio, right? At one point, I shouldn't say this, but I was at 50% Bitcoin in my portfolios. And you might ask me how you can buy it on the stock market. Don't buy it in the US market because you don't have a proper ETF. 3IQ, you go look up the company, 3IQ, maybe you can put a little message there. They're in Canada. They sell Bitcoin by American dollars and Canadian dollars, and they are not a paper trading company. They own the Bitcoin. They have custody of the Bitcoin. You are buying real Bitcoin. That's one way to do it, right?
Okay, I'll put that in the comments below.
Yeah, 3IQ, that's one way. And there's another called Purpose Investments. It's Canadian. And so the bottom line is I had one out with my friend. He goes, and he actually, when the book was in draft, some of it I ran by him, he liked it, and he just trashed Bitcoin hard. The government's going to take it. They're not going to let it survive. They're not going to give it time. There's too many Wall Street people on there now. There's too many companies. I live in Toronto. I can pay in Richmond Hill. I can pay my taxes by Bitcoin. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So why do you support hard backing of currency? And can you explain what that is? What is hard backing?
Hard backing is I cannot issue money without the support of gold. Let me give you a simple example, and I'll keep it succinct. My Scottish side will come out now, okay? And in Bretton Woods, approximately, if the American central bank was going to print $1, they needed 40 cents of gold, 40% gold. So they can't print. What hard backing does is keeps government in their place. They can't spend to bribe you to vote for them. Just send me some money, I'll vote for you. Oh, I don't care what you do. I'm not in the ideology business. I just I'll vote for you. Send me some money. Oh, you're good. I'll vote for you. And then next lady sends me money, I'll vote for her. So you can't make war if you don't have enough money.
Yes.
right?
Okay, all right.
And I'm pretty anti-war. If you don't have enough money, you can't bribe voters. If you don't have enough money, you can't grow government.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't grow government, how can you tax and oppress?
Uh-huh.
So
Oh,
that's what I mean by hard backing, and it's solid, and you don't just need gold. You can have energy like the Saudis have or the Russians have.
yeah, yeah,
And
like they
back your
have the
money.
oil, so they have
They have
that.
the oil and the gas and all that stuff and essential oil. Or, so anyways, that was my answer.
Oh, okay. All right.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So yeah, I was,
gold.
you know, some people would be wondering, what is hard backing? What does that actually
5,000 to 7,000 years since Mesopotamia with gold. And people, you know, we have a psychological understanding that yes, gold means something, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it's always good to have a little bit of gold, physical, always good. And silver too. I'm not against silver.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Now, the word that's been on everyone's lips lately has been inflation. And you do explain here, what is the real story behind inflation, and why do the feds and the government keep shifting the narrative from one way to the other?
Okay, this is it's a bit loaded, and I'm gonna have to be so I'll wind for a couple of minutes here.
Okay.
Inflation is basically, it all starts with Richard Cantillon. He was the 18th century economist. He was the Irish French economist, and Cantillon, it's called, when he keep it simple, when too much money chases the same amount of goods, we have what we call inflation. That's called the Cantillon effect. You're not even taught this in business school.
No, well, I didn't go to business school.
And I was in stuff. I went later in my life, right? I mean, and you're not taught this. So what you've got here is, here's what happened here. Since COVID and even before, I'm going to keep it simple. When the Obama administration started, the American debt was at 10 trillion. Then it went to 20 trillion. I'm giving you rough numbers. And then I think Trump took it up to about 26 trillion. And the current administration is at 31 trillion, close to it. And there'll be 40 trillion by the end of the first term, approximately. Okay. So in terms of explaining inflation, I also want to tell you that since 2020, the Fed has increased their balance sheet from 4 trillion to 9 trillion. What that means is cash they threw in there. And then they go, oh my, did that cause inflation? Oh, how did that happen? We didn't see. Of course we saw it coming. Stop treating us as fools. The Fed caused inflation. Government caused inflation. I'm not going to blame any political parties. I don't want to. It's not a book to cheer for, to get politicized. But of course, economics always goes through the lines of political thinking. So what happened is, and I'll explain this as simply as possible. You've got the same amount of money. Joe Sixpack stayed at home, bought into this COVID-19 narrative. By the way, the Swedish did not lock down their economy, and they had a 90% better survival rate on COVID than Europe, and certainly in the West, and this is not about America necessarily. You can look this up on the World Meter if you like. You can look it up, and I can send this to you. They had a higher survival rate. So you locked people up, which was a disaster, mentally, psychologically, economically, and health-wise. And I'm not going to get into other stuff here. But what you also did is you printed this money. Joe Sixpack stayed at home, if I can use this word, and he stayed at home. He went to Walmart when he went out. He bought Netflix. You sent him money. He drank beer and he smoked a bit of cannabis as well. Okay.
Okay.
And he did all this and doesn't want to work. You've now created a tight labor market. He took his money. I took my money. I've got nothing to do at home. I got on Amazon. I started ordering gadgets and phones and cell phones and what have you, and gadgets and cameras and whatever. And Amazon, where did they order it? They went right to China. Then what happened in China is they got an exorbitant amount of orders because of the $5 trillion you printed in the last 18 months. You clogged their ports. And oh, if there's no inflation, it's because we don't have enough containers and to move the ports. But once the logistics issue is over, everything's fine, folks. Nothing to see here. So let me understand. Well, who caused the inflation? The book tells you it's government and, of course, the feds. It was transitory at first, right? Okay. All right. I'm going to buy into the. No, then it is peak inflation. Oh, no. COVID caused the inflation. Well, if you read my book, you'll find out we're going into recession 4 months before COVID hit. And I explained I'm not going to do it in this interview unless you ask me separately. And then then we're at peak inflation. No, it's not that. It's the logistics that caused all the inflation. Oh, no, that's not it. Oh, it was the Ukrainian-Russian war. Inflation was at 7.4% before war broke out. No, and oil was at $91, $89, $92, which is where it is now. So that didn't do. Oh, no, I know what caused the inflation. It's the greedy energy companies. Yes, let's blame it on them. Look, I don't know if you watch Beretta, but if you can't do the crime, don't do the time. If you can't do the time, don't do the crime.
Don't do the crime, yeah.
And now and it's in my book, and I know you're going to ask me something. You're turning around, you're saying, oh my, government's going to fix inflation. That's like calling the axe murderer to the crime of the scene and saying, by the way, can you resuscitate that patient bleeding to death?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Like that's the big joke. I'm the government and I'm here to help. Well, you're the one who created that.
I hope.
Follow that up. Are we in a recession or are we not? And how much is the economy really shrinking?
Okay, that's a good question. And we are in a recession. I'll define a recession. Classically, it's 2 quarters of negative growth in the GDP. GDP is gross domestic product, right? I explained the GDP in the book. And if inflation is 0.9, if the GDP shrunk in the last one at 1.3, you can triple those numbers. Why? Okay. First of all, yes, I could tell you 2 months ago, anybody who watches stuff like Kidco News or watch Gregory Mannarino, I'm going to give you some links. He's in my book. I gave him acknowledgments in the, because I did a few extra updates because I looked at the grammaticals and stuff. I should say that, but a couple of tiny things I caught on a graph or two. And he's been screaming it for months. We're already in a recession. We were in a recession 2-3 months ago. For anyone in government, it's okay to lie. I don't mind the lies, okay? But don't treat us like fools, okay? Back to back 2 quarters of a contraction in the economy. It's called the recession. The recession is worse than what they officially state. And I don't want to get mathematical, but I'll keep it simple. So they turn around, they go, inflation's at 9%, okay? 9.1 or whatever. The effective inflation's at 17 to 20%. So what the government does when they do the GDP numbers, of course, everything costs more, so the economy looks like it's growing. Then they deduct the official 9.1% from there. They don't deduct the 20%. You know inflation is 20%. Go grocery shopping, buy gasoline. And the only thing where you're not getting inflation is cell phones. But I'm not buying cell phones. I need to feed my family. I need food. I need food on my table. I need to. So anyways, I would say inflation is higher. And in not being diplomatic, the government is just trying to shift the definition, right?
Of course they are.
And if people want to believe that, and they're talking about a strong labor market, the layoffs are coming all over Silicon Valley, and now there's what they call wage inflation too. Anyways, and by the way, the higher wages are maybe 80% below the rate of inflation. So if I'm getting an extra $2 an hour for my labor, to keep it simple, that inflation is probably $6 an hour or $4.50. I'm way behind. Yeah. You're okay, right? We're good?
Yep, I'm okay. Yeah, wait, well, we're definitely in a recession. I mean, like, who cannot see it? It's like, if you're going to say we're not, then obviously you're housebound or cocooned or something that you're not seeing this. Anybody who drives anywhere, You know, they know how much the gas is costing. They know how much it was 3 years ago.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the other thing you can also do is they have, it's in the book, the UN price basket of food price index. It's called the UN basket of food price index. It's up 20% in a year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, and CPI is just on stuff that, you know, they're measuring cell phones, your internet costs, your, you know, cable TV costs, you know, they have other stuff in there like that. But as soon as gasoline, I know in Canada in the CPI, as soon as gasoline and food get volatile in pricing, out of the index it goes. I used to specialize in indexes when I went to business school. It's called it's the last first index. It's a little mathematical, but it's not rocket science. But that's what they use, right? And I saw the particular speech last week by the Fed chairman, okay? And the questions are he's given us questions, his answers are all prepared, okay?
Oh,
He's
yeah, of course, they always are. Not anymore. All right. Now, what are the BRIC countries doing that will be a threat to the U.S. Monetary, you know, how do you pronounce it?
Hegemony.
Hegemony.
Yeah.
Okay, and what are the BRIC countries? What are those?
Well, I'm going to get into BRIC in a moment, but the hegemony of the U.S. dollar is really, you know, as the British Empire came down, really they were exhausted just after the First World War. You could argue a little bit before, but America had one formidable empire in its way to create empire, and that were the British. And it's in my book on how they detangled the British pound and the British sterling zone. And this is interesting stuff that's happening during the time of John Maynard Keynes. And I'm not going to get into the details now, but it's in my book. So America, once you have world currency reserve status, you have empire.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're really smart, you don't need, you know, and like the British, who had a pretty good navy to defend the British pound, the Americans have a pretty good military most of the time to defend the US dollar. I think it was, so getting into reserve currency status, here's what happened. The BRIC countries are, that you're talking about Russia, China, some people, Brazil, Russia, China, India, say they even have, I don't think Iran's part of it, but you know, some of these other countries, they're turning around and saying, oh, you know what? We've got all these US treasuries and all this US cash. And did you look down the road? Yeah, what happened to Russia? Well, America didn't like their foreign policy, so they grabbed up about $380 billion of their money. Oh, geez. And now the Saudis are going, oh, wow, I got about 1.5 trillion cash and $600 billion, and this is rough numbers, please, of US Treasury bills, 10-year notes. If I don't toe the line, what are they going to do to me? And then China, who bought, I don't know, they've got a couple of $1 trillion of our debt. They go, oh, really? Geez, they could really put a noose on me. So they're slowly liquidating the US dollar out the door. So what you got basically is you've got these countries that want to trade either through barter, gold, Bitcoin, oil, the rupee. By the way, the Russian ruble has gone through the roof. Like, it's so expensive now. It's had the opposite effect. And the Chinese RMB. Now, not that the Chinese RMB, that's their currency, is much stronger. So to keep this long story short, you in essence, through your various policies, have created a competitive club of Rome, a new club of Rome. And these guys have a lot more population than us. And you know, the Europeans are just like leaderless. And what are they going to do? They're going to go, what do we do now, Batman? You know, it's like, they're like Commissioner Gordon can't do his job, and the Irish cop can't do his job, so they call Batman. It's my first book, right?
Yeah.
But what are we going to do now? And you know, how long can the Cape Crusaders show up and help? But in essence, what you've done is, by doing this, and I don't mean this in a mean way, you are weakening the fluidity and the currency of, reserve currency of the world, US dollar. It's not going to go away. I'm not saying, oh, it's the end of the US dollar. But you have competition now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like Lebanon went bust a couple of years, 3 years ago. We had a friend from there, right?
Yeah.
They can't get money out of the bank. But if they had Bitcoin or gold,
then they could. Yeah.
That's right. All the money's in Swiss bank accounts. The government stole it. Anyways, that's another story.
So what would be your advice to the average middle class American sitting, to protect themselves against this wave of inflation and the recession?
First of all, the average middle class American should get away from the tragedy of watching mainstream media and television. It's like, unless you like to be a victim of intellectual fraud, they're shameless. Pretty well. They're shameless. As a kid when I was growing up, I had that sense of shame. That was maybe taught by my parents, and we all have this. They're shameless, and I won't call them any more names, but so that's the first thing you can do. They lie. The second thing you can do is I'm going to be specific. I watch Kitco News, Stanberry Research, Gregory Mannarino. You must watch Gregory Mannarino. I watch him on YouTube. I got a screen, in our little home theater, and I just watch him and all my financial superheroes. Okay. So what
and you're going to send me the links to those, and I'll put them below.
Yeah. Just email me to remind me. I'm not writing while we're talking, but I will.
Okay. All right.
Links to. Lauren,
yeah, to what you recommend that we watch for honesty.
Okay, so what I recommend is, I'm not a financial advisor, but I do think that everybody should have some physical goal, okay? Not to make quick money. I'm not going to get complicated. When the US dollar drops, it's dropping a little bit now because they brought interest rates, the 10-year treasury came down. The U.S. debt is being bought up under clandestine way by the central bank right now. I'm not going to go there. What you can do as a person is you should have some physical silver and gold in your possession.
Yeah.
You should have a little accumulation of food. Don't hoard it, because if we do have a food shortage because of the fertilizer issues and the arguments between the ecology and the food and all this stuff, I understand that. I'm not going to go there. Take a little bit so everybody else can have food too. You can grow some of your food good, because when the panic bells come and the talking heads on the mainstream media, they're going to go, it's a food shortage. We didn't see this coming. Oh, we didn't see it. Of course they did, right? So you should have some food. You should have some gold and silver. As a long-term hold, not to trade. There's nothing wrong with Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
I still am a believer that a little bit of energy in your portfolio is good. I also think that they're going to try, they'll probably succeed, but they're going to pump up the stock market again. We've had a 30% haircut, right?
Yeah.
And they'll start buying stocks up and creating liquidity through the central bank, right? So the stocks will come up, but eventually the big thug will come down, and it'll just drop. You're just printing and printing and printing money. So I do like to.
That kind of reminds me of a music video. Have you ever heard of Ray? What is it? Ray Stevens? He's a country music star.
Yeah, he had a few hits a long time ago.
Yeah, I remember The Streak.
The Streak, yeah. The Streak. I don't like spiders and snakes.
Comic music videos, but he did one several years ago. It was when Obama was in office, called the Obama. I wish I could remember the name of it. The Obama financial plan. And we decided to do and basically what it is this country family who's broke, and they decide, well, we're just going to do it the way Obama does it, and they got a printing press and start printing money.
Yeah.
They just buying houses and buying, furs and everything. And then, of course, at the end, then they get arrested for counterfeit.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
they're
when
just
we get broke, we'll just print more.
yeah. You're right. They're just doing an imitation of the Fed. And it's in my book, Lauren, to be frank with you, and you're asking some very good questions. Once you print money and I'm in a really strong position, and let's say I've got $100 million, my net worth, the bank will line up to lend me 30, 40 million bucks at 2%. I take paper money and I buy hard assets like real estate or gold or whatever hard. Or another protection is I have this favorite car. I love the 1967 Lincoln Mark II. They only made 3,000 of them. Elvis Presley, Shah of Iran had one. Marilyn Monroe had one. Buy collectible cars. Buy collectible artwork. You know, what's real value? You know, someone, you know, they had a great show on. They said, well, what do you mean by value? Well, I've got real estate. You ever been in the country where they steal your real estate? I have. I got family in Africa. Mm-hmm. There's people in the Far East, they'll steal it. You mess with them. Well, what's real? Gold. Well, gold is conjectured in our mind as value, you know? So these are all, you know, our psychological conditions foster value, but Bitcoin has to be part of your portfolio. Have a little bit that you've got separate money that you can trade, that nobody can take off you, that you can trade back and forth, you know? And like I said, I got my friend, he sent me it was a hit piece email. He's my buddy. And he goes, oh, it's the end of Bitcoin. The government's going to seize it. He's going on and on. Nah, they're just going to tax it. We'll see what happens. But that's what I mean by hard, you know, nice piece of artwork, live within your means. No need to show off. That's not going to help you. There's so many people that are tight for money that spend so much time. I lived in LA and I was as good as my last BMW payment, right? So, you know, yeah, you know, I made my BMW payment. I looked flashy, and that's all that counts. You haven't built wealth, but you know, and if you can grow your own food a little bit, I don't grow much. I shouldn't talk, but accumulate a little bit of food.
Well, see, I have a black thumb. I can't grow my own food.
Maybe your husband, your kid.
Yeah.
Another thing is if you have a collection of a little bit of food, and you know, because when the panic comes in, everyone's going to go, oh, what happened? And I'll say this on camera, have a good collection of food to get you by for a few months. And then so this way other people can buy food because you're only buying a little bit at a time, right? Mm-hmm. You will probably be trading cereal for perhaps frozen meat, or cereal for, you know, something to get you by, for you might cans of what do you call it? Canned fruit or something like that, right? Now you go, well, I got gold, but the gold, let's say it's worth $1,700 US for the sake of argument. So you'll turn around and they'll cheat you for your gold. Why? You're so desperate and hungry that you're going to give out an ounce of gold for maybe no more than $800 of food. So don't do that. You're going to get ripped off, right? Sooner or later. Mm-hmm. I listen to a lot of people. Of course, I'll send you a link, and you know, these people helped me. And again, Gregory Mannarino, he's a bit.
And he recommends your book.
Well, that was nice of him. Yeah. Yeah. And he's an ex Wall Street derivatives trader, options trader, equity trader. He calls himself the Robin Hood of Wall Street. And I was a lot more diplomatic about the Feds and government than he is. You know, he's just like, he has a personal disdain for everybody at the Fed, not just one, all of them. Yeah. So he's not going to be a British diplomat anytime soon.
If you enjoyed this interview, then do be sure to give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to receive notifications for future author interviews. Until next time, happy reading from Authors on iTours.